Hey legends, in this video we're going to do a roundup of some of my favourite plugins for 2023. And I just want to thank Plugin Boutique for sponsoring this video. If you want to grab a copy of any of these plugins afterwards, check the description below and you'll find links to all of these plugins on Plugin Boutique's store. Currently we're leading up to Black Friday, so there's plenty of great deals, but even if you watch this video at a later date, make sure you check it out because Plugin Boutique always have great deals on their website anyway. So the first ones I want to talk about are the UAD 1176 Classic Limiter Collection. These three compressors get used all the time in my mixes. I really love the 1176 Rev A when I want to add a little bit more grit or character to a vocal, give it a little bit extra presence and color through the compressor.
I've got it made, this life I'm living, no I gotta give it up.
The AE version I really love using on a parallel drum bus just to add a little bit of smash and sustain to the drum sound. And the Rev E version is just a really great all-rounder, works on lots of great things like bass, vocals, drums, anything where you want to rein in the dynamics, add a bit more excitement and get that source sounding a little bit more upfront. This is a great choice of a compressor. And of course, the Teletronics LA2A Leveler Collection. I really love this on vocals and bass guitar. I think it really shines on those two things. And especially when paired with an 1176 and an LA2A, you get really great results by stacking those two compressors together.
I've got it made, this life I'm living, no I gotta give it up to my saving grace.
And the Pultec Passive EQ Collection, I absolutely love these Pultec EQs, using them on drums, vocals, the mix bus, guitars, anything that needs a little bit of sparkle or thickening the low end, getting rid of a bit of that muddy mid-range. This can really help using a Pultec EQ. So the next company that I want to mention is FabFilter. I love Pro Q3, Pro MB, Saturn 2, and Pro L2. Those four plugins from FabFilter get used in pretty much all of my mixes. Something as simple as a single dynamic EQ band at the end of my vocal chain using Pro Q3 can make such a big difference.
Made, this life I'm living, no I gotta give it up.
Reins in those harsh upper mid frequencies on the vocal and just gets it sounding really nice in the mix. There's so many great ways to use Pro MB, even just a single band as a multi-band compressor to rein in harsh or muddy frequencies. Even in this case where we're using it as a expander on our room mic, sidechain to our snare, so it's making the room sound pop every time the snare hits.
Made in the shade like lemonade, every day's getting better day.
And even as a vocal de-esser, this is like a Swiss Army knife plugin that I would take with me to a desert island. If you need a little bit of extra saturation on a sound, Saturn 2 is always a great choice. You can do tube, tape, amp sounds, some really hard saturation, transformer sounds, and there's some pretty crazy effects in here as well. There's so much you can do with this plugin and so many sounds you can create. It's just an amazing tool. And Pro L2 is pretty much one of my favorite limiters to use when mastering as a final brick wall limiter on the way out.
Made in the shade like lemonade, every day's getting better day.
Just an amazing limiter. Definitely think if you're very serious about audio production, FabFilter plugins are very good. Another one I want to mention is the D16 Repeater. This is a really nice delay plugin, lots of features, and I love that you can just boost the color if you want it brighter, darker, roll off the highs, roll off the lows, spread it, choose an analog kind of vibe. All the controls you really need, ping pong, feedback, phase invert one channel, tap the tempo. It's kind of got everything you need, and there's a bunch of different delay types. It's just really well thought out and a really great sounding plugin. I love the width that adds. So we have the spread pushed in there and you can just feel it's just this really nice wide delay sound. If you've watched a bunch of my mixing videos, you know I'm a big fan of Black Soul Audio's silencer, and this plugin is just amazing at killing cymbal bleed. Works really well and super easy to dial in. And that works so good on kicks, snares and toms and cleans your kit up very easily. Now I definitely have to do a big mention to Sound Toys plugins because I use these in every mix. They are an indispensable tool that I use all the time. Okay, I could pretty much list every Soundtoys plugin and tell you why I love them, but I'll just take you through the ones that I use mostly. So bear with me and I'll just give you a quick reason why I like to use these. Decapitator is an amazing plugin, adding a little bit of saturation, distortion, drums, vocals, bass, anything you want a bit of grit on. This is really good. Echo Boy, just an amazing all-rounder delay plugin. So many options, so many great presets. It's just a go-to delay plugin for me. Devil Lock, this thing is a beast. It absolutely crushes and distorts and mangles sounds, and it's really great on things like drums when you really want to get a big, crunchy, distorted drum sound. So here's a bit of an example. I printed some drums and then made a bit of an affected, filtered drum loop sound to kind of ramp up into the chorus. This is what it sounds like without Devil Lock. It just adds heaps of flavor, a lot of grit, an amazing plugin. Little Altar Boy, I love using this in pop productions when I want to pitch up a vocal maybe an octave or pitch it down an octave for that really pitched down vocal effect. Micro shift can be great on double track vocals if you only have a single double and you need to make it sound a bit wider, or even on an instrument where you want to get a bit of a chorus sound and even sort of spread the sound out a bit more. Micro shift can create some pretty interesting sounds. Little Plate is just a really sweet sounding reverb. Very easy to dial in a nice tone. It's never really bright and annoying. It's quite a nice warm reverb. Radiator, this is a great plugin if you want to add a little bit of that tube saturation to a sound. You can really push it in and get like preamp distortion and then kind of play with the mix knob and dial it back and really help bring your sound to life. And I think this sounds really great in parallel with drums, where you really drive like maybe the kick and the snare and then blend that in with your drum bus, and it can sound really great. Pairman is a great tool if you want to add some movement to a sound in your mix. So I particularly like using this on like things like guitar swells and pad sounds in that sort of left to right motion. And you can play with the parameters to dial in a really nice sound. So this next plugin from Baby Audio is Smooth Operator, and it's become a little bit of a secret weapon on my vocal bus. I really love using this if I need to kind of tame some of the high end in a vocal. It works really well as a kind of a last de-esser, as well as sort of catching any kind of upper mid annoying frequencies.
Your kiss on my lips, it just hits a bit different.
I refer to it as the poor man's Soothe. So if you don't want to go spend a lot of money on something like Soothe, Smooth Operator is a great second choice. It does very similar things with limited parameters, but as far as a plugin that suppresses resonances, then this is a great choice. Okay, again, if you've watched any of my mixing videos, you'll know that I love the Relabs LX480 Essential. And now this plugin, it's a steal. It's got some really great reverb sounds in it. Even though it may have some sort of cut back parameters or choices that you can choose from, it kind of does everything you need it to do. I have plenty of great reverbs and I still reach for this one. This one sounds really nice. So for this particular example, I'm using the LX480 Essentials to make my drum room sound a little bit more lively than it is. Just a great sounding reverb, sounds amazing on pretty much anything you use it on, drums, vocals, guitars. It's awesome. So another company I want to mention is Brainworks. I use a bunch of plugins from these guys and I really like the Black Box HG2. This can add some really nice saturation to any sound that you just need to add a bit of extra flavor to. So particularly I think it's really cool on drums like your kick, your snare, drum bass. On the mix bus, it sounds really cool. On vocals, there's lots of cool ways of using this. So here we have it on a snare drum. Really spices things up. So another plugin from Brainworks that I use in pretty much every mix is the BX Console SSL 4000E. It's got everything you need to quickly dial in a sound, filters, EQ, compressor, expander gate. It's just a great plugin to dial in a sound very quick and easy. So again, here it is on our snare drum. Simple boost at the high end and the low end, bit of compression and a bit of an expanded gate. And we've just dialed in a nice fat snare sound. So typically when I'm mixing a song, I'll use my outboard compressor on the mix bus. But if I'm doing a mix completely in the box, I generally will reach for something like the BX Townhouse bus compressor. This thing adds some nice flavor to the mix. It's got a little bit of extra low end and a bit of excitement to it. It's a really nice mix bus compressor, but it also sounds pretty sweet on drums too. The Brainworks Bass Dude is probably one of my favorite guitar VSTs. I love this, especially for stuff that's kind of like country rock or just anything where you don't need a really high gain guitar sound. I think this is one of the best virtual guitar amps I've used where you just plug in and get a good tone and don't have to play around for ages. All of the guitars in this mix are just done with the Bass Dude. Love that guitar amp. Brainworks Ampeg B15N is an amazing bass amp VST for that classic fat tube bass amp sound. I really love this when I just want a big, warm bass guitar sound. If you need to add a bit of color, a bit of an effect to a sound, XLN's RC20 Retro Color is a really great plugin for doing that with simple parameters, but then you can also go really into depth with the design of it. I'll flick through a couple of presets on the drum bus just to show you how powerful this is. So even those presets on the drum bus, they sound awesome. And that drum break too, you can imagine that as an effect and a bit where everything sort of drops down. So it's a great plugin for adding a bit of effect to a sound. Another great plugin from XLN is the Addictive Keys. I love the Studio Grand. This is my go-to grand piano sound. I think it sounds really great in a lot of settings. It cuts through the mix really nicely. It's great in a band setting. It's great in a solo setting. There's a lot of options to choose from. You can have wide stereo ribbon mics or close tube mics, a bunch of different options, and I'll quickly show you what they sound like. It's a really nice, authentic sounding grand piano to my ears. And just the options of blending your close mics, and then you can have your distant room mics. It's got effects, a reverb, delay. It also has compression, things like chorus. You can add distortion, tremolo. There's lots of stuff you can do with this to really dial in the sound. It's an amazing tool for getting a really great grand piano sound. This one's a fairly recent addition to my top plugins, but I really love the Kiive Audio Complex 760 limiter, especially on drums. I think on the drum bus as a compressor, it sounds amazing. Just really spices the drums up and brings them to life. So there's definitely a lot of other plugins that I like to use, but these plugins are the ones that end up across most of my mixes. And if you want to grab a copy of any of these plugins, check the description below, as there'll be links to where you can find them on Plugin Boutique's store. If you enjoy this kind of content, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. If you want to support this channel, there will also be a link in the description to where you can go to my website and check out my range of drum samples and mix courses. If you're interested in seeing how I like to use the UAD Pultec collection, check out this next video coming up where I'm going to mix some drums using that, as well as the UAD Fairchild compressor.